All right, welcome to the first video for the percent, tips, commission, and interest series. In these problems, we're extending what we've done before with the discount markup tax. We're again using percents as a tool. And so again, we're going to use calculators because we're not testing, do we know how to do this by hand, multiply whole numbers and decimals. We're testing a couple of things. We're checking, do we know how to change a decimal from a percent? Do we know how to get a decimal? So when we have 2%, do we know that that's 0.02? Not 0.2, but 0.02. For the 18% tip, we know that that's 0.18. And then can we put together a series of problems? Can we logically figure it out? So these are very much reading problems. You have to take your time and carefully read them. Jackie's a waitress. On Saturday night, she did $1,200, $1,200 in total sales and averaged an 18% tip. She had to tip each busboy 2% out of her tip earnings. So she's giving them 2% out of her tip earnings. If she had 3 busboys that worked for her, then how much did she have to pay out? So the first thing we need to know is we need to know, what did Jackie get in tips that night? And to do that, we're going to start with $1,200 in sales and an 18% tip rate, 0.18% tip rate. And as I said, we're going to use a calculator. We're going to use the tools, realistic tools here. So $1,200, $1,200 times 0.18 equals, Jackie earned, line's a little longer than it needs to be, Jackie earned $216. Those are Jackie's tips. So we're going to take that information now. We're going to take Jackie's tips. We're going to bring it up here. I'm going to throw in a couple dollar signs just to remind ourselves that we're talking about money here. So we're going to take the $216 that Jackie earned, and she pays 3 busboys, and she gives them each 2% of her tips. So we're going to multiply that by 2%. So my $216 here, I'm going to multiply it by 0.02. You can see in my calculator, 216 times 0.02. If you can get yourself a calculator that has what's called a 2-line display, that's really helpful, because you get to see what number you put in. And when we do that, we get, and see the display still tells us everything, we get $4.32. So let's label. Now, you don't have to label all these on every test, but it helps. It helps keep track of what you're doing. This 0.02, that is the busboy tip rate. And this $4.32 is tips per busboy. That's what each busboy gets. Let me get my calculator out of the way here. So we know that we need, our last step here, we need the tips per busboy, $4.32, times 3 busboys. I noticed when I corrected your tests, there were a fair number of students who wrote 432 as their final answer. They didn't do the 3 busboys, but we need to do that. So here's our calculator again. We already have our 432. We're going to multiply it by 3, and we get $12.96. And that is our final answer. $12.96 is the total that Jackie paid out. Okay, so there's another video on the 18.1 series. It's 18.1b. If you still need some work on this, be sure you check it out. And if you have questions, be sure you bring them to class.